This is GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly podcast about gaming, technology, and play. Your hosts are Michael Martin, Andy Piper, and Michael Rowe. The thoughts and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests alone and are not the opinions of any organization which they have been, are, or may be affiliated with.
This is episode 548, The Uncomfortable Valley. Hello, and welcome again to another edition of GamesAtWork.biz. This is Michael Martin, one of your two Michael co-hosts, and not one of your Andy co-hosts who's not with us this week, who is off on other engagements. But Michael, you and I are going to hold down the fort, and we're going to have all kinds of good fun stuff to talk about, aren't we?
Yes, and I am also not one of your Andy co-hosts because there's only one Andy co-host, as you said. And
exactly.
This Michael co-host is happy to be here. Michael, take it away. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's do. So the very first article for this week is coming from Fast Company, and I used to subscribe to this magazine once upon a time, and I enjoyed seeing it all the time, and they still have great articles that come through, and this particular one was super funny for me to read about. It's by Rebecca Heilweil, and that kind of rhymes there, doesn't it? That talks about Microsoft Teams and the emoji faces on Microsoft Teams. So, Michael, you and I have both experienced Teams.
Just barely for a very short period of time before I switched companies. My current company does not use Teams, but I do have a customer who uses Teams, and I keep trying to force them onto Zoom.
well,
now we'll know why.
Good luck with that, because one of the reasons you might want to force them onto Zoom is because the emojis are a little creepy, on the weird side.
Creepy.
So the article is titled The Uncomfortable Valley, and we have talked about different valleys here before, and I love the word uncomfortable because these emojis are not uncanny. They don't remind you of a humanoid or a robot that's like it's a human but not quite, but it's a little uncomfortable because the emojis are animated and they do some stuff. And so aside maybe even from like the smiley face, once you start going a little bit beyond that, those emojis, do things that are not exactly maybe what you really want to convey in many of a business meeting. And that's kind of what Rebecca's writing about in her article. The emojis are supposed to convey emotion, and to do so effectively and efficiently with a more or less common thought. But the manner in which these emojis and the animation behind them come across is sometimes maybe a little less businesslike than one might expect.
Yeah, it is a funny story, and the examples that the author gives, going through the Uncanny Valley discussion, etc., brought back nice little smiles and conversations that we had years ago in the 3D internet days.
Yep.
And I do find it interesting that there's this corporate move right now to be playful, and
don't say that with disdain. That's what we've been talking about for years.
Well, there's a difference to me between being playful and being professional. You can be professionally playful with like gaming technology, things that way, but
or playfully professional.
And I actually posted about this on Mastodon about living in. I'm a text-based person living in an emoji world. We've got this environment, at least my current environment where I work at, that loves to put emojis in everything. And I don't need emojis in my documentation. I don't need emojis in my status reports. I don't need cute little icons of things in stuff where I'm trying to consume information, and the emojis provide no additional value, right? And so when I look at this, it's another one of these. Yes, the little faces are cute if you're like saying, yay, you did great, right? Or ha ha ha, I'm smiling or laughing. But you don't need the animation. That is an additional piece of cognitive load that you as a user have to deal with when it pops up on the screen. And if you're in the middle of, let's say you're in the middle of a finance audit, right? And you're on Teams, and suddenly this cute little thing comes up and goes, hee. No, I don't need that crap. I don't need that crap. So yours is not working. Are you trying to give things?
No, I'm just playing with, because so what Michael's referring to is I'm doing the reactions in macOS, right? So sometimes you get some birthday balloons or you get some fireworks or some other things. And there's certainly been articles and other topics. I think we've talked about it too, that there are times when that might not be the appropriate emotion or animation that you might want to convey in a particular experience. So I get it. I understand your point, Michael. If I'm reading serious documentation about how to operate some software or hardware or what have you, I don't need it to be cutesy. I need it to convey the information and allow me to do what I need to do. Right? Exactly. It's not like at the end of a Monty Python, the crawl where they, claim that there were no llamas or coconuts or sparrows, that were injured as a part of the making of the film, perhaps.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. So I'm with you. And that to me was why I was attracted to this article. I knew you were going to have a point of view on it, because the idea of being professionally playful or playfully professional, or, being on the right part of that spectrum for the context of where you are is kind of important. And when you're dealing with multiple nationalities and you're dealing with all kinds of, other norms and people, you want the message sent to equal the message received. And that's what this article is really talking about. Like the angry face, for example, where you might want to professionally, playfully convey that, oh, I don't like that particular set of numbers in that, region of the country or the world for the sales figures. The fact that the emoji, shakes and kind of is looking like super deluxe angry might overly state how you feel. And that's not what you're trying to send.
And it also, there's cultural differences too that could play into misrepresentation or misunderstanding of what you're actually sending. So, context is kind of important, don't you think?
It kind of is. So, uncomfortable valley. I love the term, and thanks. I'm really, really grateful for that. Now thinking about some other weird things, we've talked about some weird Nintendo experiences, like the Alarmo was one of the things we talked about recently. And there's an article from The Verge, although there's been several articles on this particular front, of a talking flower toy that remains playful, and it will tell you various and sundry things as you see it, but it also looks a little bit weird, and it will interrupt your day. In the way I'm reading it, in a playful, fun kind of way to tell you the time and maybe say something a little bit like, gosh, the talking moose would have done back in the day.
Yeah. Okay. So I get to be grumpy old man this episode.
Oh my gosh. You don't have to. Don't feel like you need to play the role if you don't want it.
No. So this one I actually get. Because this is a consumer device for home, and you could probably have it like in your kid's room or in a playroom or something. And you can have some fun with it, and you can disable it.
Yes.
You can tell it not to do things too.
Right.
And it's not a chat device. It's not designed for full interaction where it's sucking up the data in your house.
There's no large language model for this.
So this one actually, I would never have it, but I get it, and I'm okay with it.
Okay.
See, I wasn't the grumpy old man.
See, you sidestep that nicely. Now, how about this next one, about this camera idea? How does this one grab you? It doesn't have a large language model to it, but it will help create a gamified version of your day and send you on quests to go and collect information and pictures and a whole lot more.
Yeah, so this is from Hackster.io, and it's a device that a guy developed that gamifies taking environmental pictures, is the way I put it. Things around you. And I was actually listening to a story the other day about Pokemon Go.
Oh, yeah.
And I know
pizzas?
You were a fan of the Monopoly game.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
And the whole idea of checking in places. And we ultimately discovered the main reason for each of these is data collection and mapping out popular areas and finding out where people are. And so this is an individual doing it. It's kind of for fun. And I think those other games may have started for fun, but tended to be a data suck in the long run. I hope this stays a one-off, fun little project for a guy who just wants to hack around and do these things. And I'll leave it at that. Because we all know I've gotten sensitive about my data over time, and I think it's important that people understand the nuances of data collection, what can and cannot be collected, right? And what it can and cannot be used for. It's funny. I've listened to the Twit network for 20 years.
Gosh, they've been around that long?
Yeah. And for the longest time, Leo Laporte, who's kind of the founder of that and does a lot of the shows there, would say, I've got nothing to hide. I'm open, blah, 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 blah. I've got no problem about data privacy. And he's starting to finally switch his tune. Recognizing that just because you got nothing to hide doesn't mean you want everything consumed and known, right? And so I think we as tech people and people who enjoy technology and learning new things and playing on the leading edge need to kind of reassess the assumptions when we play with something new. To don't just assume everything's always going to be used for good, right? Or not used for nefarious purposes. And so I found it interesting that he was recognizing that recently. And I want to get your perspective, because I know, are you still doing, Foursquare? And checking in places.
They have something called Swarm, which is
Swarm. The new version was
Yeah. So there's certainly a lot of thoughts about what data you're putting out, where, who owns it, who has control over it, what could go, what are derivative works that come as a result, and this works whether you're playing with Google Maps. Even Apple Maps, now has frequented places, and there's ways of storing or not storing that. Foursquare and Swarm have their own data structures and the like, and certainly Pokemon Go and a variety of other situations. Waze is another lovely example. We're all about harvesting data and providing a degree of entertainment to people, or some other element of value, because why would people do it if they weren't getting some value out of it, in order to then have a deeper cache of information that could be used and repurposed for things like, I thought you were going to talk about the article about how, for pizza delivery, optimization, and for mapping, that's what many of these are harvesting data for, to keep up to speed with what's changing with the roads and what is now the most efficient, effective direction to go get somewhere.
I remember having, when I did a lot of work with the automotive industry, one of the big things was, looking at the sensor data coming off the tires of the car, that you could then sell that information to the city to say, hey, you've got problems with potholes in this area, and you ought to consider going out and sending a repair truck and fixing that.
Yes, exactly. So it's a super interesting area about how could you monetize data that people are emitting, and the digital contrails of how we walk through life. Many people don't consider at all what they're emitting, and some do.
You should assume that if a new technology can collect telemetry data, assume they're going to monetize it. And if you're okay with your data being monetized and you getting no incremental value over just the toy or the game that you're playing, are you okay with that?
Right. I mean, the phrase was, if you're not paying for something, you're paying with your data, right? And then that's something we've talked about for eons.
Yeah, but we have, but your average user, I don't think understands what.
No, of course not. Of course not. And the terms and conditions are deliberately so dense and impenetrable that you can't really fathom that unless you've had that level of experience already.
And we know that, the smart individuals who listen to our podcast are well aware of all of this.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, all of our listeners are above average and yes, super clever when it comes to this kind of stuff. So speaking of super clever, there was I think Andy actually was the one who shared this, and this tickled my fancy on a couple of different
I knew it would.
pages,
as soon as I saw it, I was like, this was targeted for you specifically.
Yeah. So here's the deal. In an agentic world where you're using agents to accomplish your tasks, there's a need for a visual representation of them. And if you're in a development environment, well, I mean, that's what we talked about that 2 weeks ago. The other time, a couple of weeks ago. There are ways for an agent to say, "Oh, I've received a task and I'm doing something with it." And in many cases, it's a chat experience back and forth, right? So you ask for something in the chat experience, you get a working kind of response, and then at some point, there's then, okay, I've done the thing you've asked for. Now, what I've been looking at more and more are the design patterns of how do you orchestrate across a multiplicity of agents who are independently operating on certain activities that might need to jointly use their inputs and outputs from one another to do something together, right? So an architect agent might need to do something with a user experience agent, might need to do something with a database administrator agent to all come up with a solution that's going to work properly. And this Pixel Friends, or Pixel Agents from Pablo De Luca, is a really neat way of having a representation of multiple agents. Yes, using 8-bit, woohoo, but to show that there's work going on, and that an agent might be busy finishing up a piece of work and another one might be ready to start. And if there needs to be sub agents, or for those of us, who've been playing in this space for a long time, not just an agent, but a demon, that you can do this kind of work and show it and see what's happening, and more easily as the human being in the center, orchestrate, recognize, see when things are done, inspect what has been completed, pass off a task to another agent, and watch it going in its way. So I love this.
So this is the ultimate management by walking around in a pixelated world, because you could sit at your desk and watch all your agents go working, and you could walk around without walking around. And I used to love doing management by walking around. I think that's a very effective way to do management when all your team is co-located.
Yeah, very
physically stuck. Right, stuck in a room together, because it's social. It's interactive. This is management by walking around voyeur edition. Because all your agents are working. Matter of fact, there was a thing announced last week or this week that is a agent orchestrator for the Mac. It's an open source project called Osiris. And I'll put a link into the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
For it, that I just started playing with. That is It doesn't give you the UI, but I'm wondering if you could hook it up to this. Because I've actually taken some skills that somebody defined to improve your code reviews and stuff, and they understand like the current rules around Swift data, the current rules around Swift concurrency, the current rule. I mean, like last week's, not the ones when the models were built 3 months ago or whatever.
Right.
And I've been using those and adjusting and creating local models based off of other coding models so that I can have my Olama server hook up to my Xcode environment with current information to do things like review this code. I'm having a problem here. Can you kind of give me some pointers? And so this is an orchestrator that has skills and capabilities to do things like access your Apple Mail, local on your machine, right? So it's on that edge now where it's open source, but is it freeware? There's a difference between those two things, right?
And are you paying for it with your data or not?
That's why I said there's a difference between those two things. If it's open source, that's one thing. If it's freeware, they're getting money somehow.
Yeah.
So, very, very interesting, interesting set of things. And I did, as soon as I saw this from Andy, I was like, "Yep, this is for you, Michael." It's the pixelated 8-bit world, and the number of games that we played with pixelated things, just fits so perfect for this.
Well, it does. I mean, it leaves you in the not even the uncomfortable valley. It leaves you in a comfortable valley because it gives you a user experience,
like a fuzzy sweater
or a comfy chair. Right?
Oh, no, not the comfy chair. Not the comfy chair.
but it gives you that opportunity to really, kind of see what's going on. And what I also like about this is the design pattern of multiple threads with could be even the same agent when you think about it, but you can represent the same agent with multiple 8-bit characters, right? So the first agent is acting as that architect agent. The second one is doing documentation. The third one is doing user experience creation. And they're all the same agent underlying, right? Still same LLM, et cetera, but you can now split them apart and see, okay, I've got 3 threads that are working concurrently, and one may finish before the others, and then you can go and inspect what's happened. And then
I think the interesting thing here, and I know we're going to run out of time, is there are a lot of paid services that do this exact thing. They just don't have that cute, playful nature sitting on top that allows you to understand what's going on.
And they're not open source. So there you go.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Excuse me. Yeah, so you're right. We're going to run out of time if we don't move along. And if we had all the time in the world, because there were agents that could take over the jobs, then we could have time to talk about this stuff, for hours and hours on end. And the Washington Post, and there were several other articles that came around the last week about what is Anthropic thinking are the jobs that are most and least exposed to having AI be able to handle the preponderance of the work that is going on. So wasn't exactly surprising to me, where things were fitting on here, plumbers and electricians, hairdressers, where those roles are fitting versus web designers and others like that.
The only thing that I would add to this, and it's a key section of the article, is that their analysis, and if you go back historically, this may be a common pattern, is that 86% of the most vulnerable workers are women based off of what's being automated. And that is a very interesting statistic, and I'd love to learn more about that, dig in through some additional stories about this, because that seems very, very bad.
Yep, I'll be interested to see what you turn up, Michael. I think that's an astute observation.
Yeah.
So rounding out our topics for this week, we had kind of a fun ish one. I mean, it's not really fun when you think about it, but it was an intriguing way. Yeah, exactly. Woohoo is an intriguing way of leveraging large language models and AI here. And this is from The Verge, and the title, which was great clickbait, is ChatGPT did not cure a dog's cancer. What was your main takeaway, would you say, from this, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, the clickbait title aside, my take is ChatGPT doesn't solve anything. It provides you with data that doctors and scientists and researchers and other people might not have found those patterns, and then can go do something with them, right? And so from that perspective, leveraging it to brainstorm treatment ideas, I think that's a good thing, right? Interesting way of doing it. And if that helps them uncover anything, that's great. But yeah, I don't think ChatGPT cures anything.
I like the reference of the protein folding from the AlphaFold example too, and that was kind of intriguing for me, just because I've been running on my machines for. Are
you still running folding at home?
Yeah. So I've been still doing that for a really long time, and it's interesting to see, how this is continuously moving forward. And I have to imagine that that's going to be a lovely workload to put on quantum computers as we go into the future, because that way you're not doing the bulldozer version of, okay, you find the contents of the sphere by slicing off one slice of the sphere, and then a second slice, and then a third, and go all the way down. So that was kind of cool. All right, so take us home, Michael, with this Devo link. You said you had something interesting to share. And
I got two angles, actually. One that just came up. If you remember, what was the very, very first Kickstarter I backed?
Oh my gosh, Michael, I don't.
It was a Devo documentary that never happened.
Oh,
the guy took everybody's money and disappeared.
That's right.
Basically, because it was going to be the authorized Devo documentary, and then Devo said no after he took everybody's money and did it. Anyway, so that was the first angle. So Devo has a YouTube channel called De-Evolutionary Times, where they go in and they give background and information about videos and the albums that they created over the years. And I think this was filmed, I want to say, within the last couple of years. It may even be like last year. Anyway, episode 6 is on the album Oh No, It's Devo. And that album has a wonderful history to me. In high school is when this album came out, and a friend of mine he had gotten tickets to go see them live at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. And in high school, I lived about 120 miles south of Atlanta, and my parents said, no, you can't go. And I'm like, but his dad's taking him. So his dad got to go see the concert with him instead of me. However, the interesting thing and how it ties in with this show is what Devo did for that concert tour is they started using computer-generated animation and integrated it with their music system so that they could control what was on giant video screens behind them down to the millisecond. And so there's videos out there, and the videos don't look that good because the way they finally rendered them out, there's sync problems in it. But during the concert, there's a point there. Devo did a lot of things where they would kind of march in place, singing forward, and Mark Mothersbaugh, who's the lead singer, would point up over his right shoulder at the exact time where a certain thing would happen in the video. And all of that was computer-generated graphics happening in real time based off of the integration between the computers on their keyboards into the sound system, into the video system. So this is like the earliest example of a major musical act doing some really cool computer-generated graphics in real time in video. fantastic 16-minute video. Highly recommend you watch it all the way through and just see how we've gotten from that, because it's like wireframes and stuff,
right,
to what you can do now. If you've ever gone to like when I went to Moogfest the couple of years while it was still here in Durham, there are a lot of bands that do this, electronic bands now, that will do music integrated with video content, etc., in real time, and they're basically using a Mac and a keyboard, right? And that's it. And it's just really, really cool. Highly recommend watching it.
Awesome. All right, well, you'll find that in the show notes, along with all the other links from what we talked about today. So if you're like, hey, what was that thing? Go over to the website, and you'll see what the thing is, because it'll be there. All right, well, thanks, everyone, for joining us for this edition. You know where to find us, gamesatwork.biz. Drop us a link or an idea, and we'll be happy to incorporate it in our show next time right here on gamesatwork.biz. See ya.
You've been listening to gamesatwork.biz, the podcast about gaming technology and play. We are part of the Blueberry Podcasting Network, and would like to thank the band Random Encounters for their song, Big Blue. You can follow us at our website at gamesatwork.biz.